Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted as always to be joined by Noel O'Connell. This is the further reaction video after Anto Cacace's stunning victory over Lee Wood in Nottingham on Saturday night. Noel, good to be joined by you as always. At the age of 36, it looks like that we're in the most exciting period of Anto Cacace's career now. He's been around for a while. He's gone and become a world champion. It sounds like he is going to return to Belfast for the first time in a while in his next fight against who we're not sure. But yeah, we want to maybe just discuss what's next and kind of what big fights we could possibly see Cacace in. Going to start with no other than the WBC world champion O'Shaquie Foster. Seen by some as the best in the division. I'll let you have your own opinion on that, but we're not talking about necessarily next, but is that a fight you can see? Is that a fight you can see happening? Is there enough kind of money there? Is there enough of a factor there for Shaki Foster to face Anto Cacace when he doesn't have to? I think one factor here is Cacace's not in a mandatory position, but he's a big name in the division. Just give us your thoughts on that one to start off with, please, now.
Yeah, I do really like that fight. I think I would like to see it happen, to be honest with you. In terms of, a bit of an Irish bias, Anto Cacace fighting for a world title. And it is, I know I kind of, no spoilers for a prediction there, but it's a winnable fight. I do like O'Shaquie Foster. He has the hand speed, the boxing IQ. He is flashy. But we have seen weaknesses there before, so yeah, it's definitely an interesting fight, and it's also interesting what you say about, you'd have to give credit to Foster if he does take that fight. You've got Anto Cacace riding that crest of a wave, and as you said, he doesn't have to take it. He's not in a mandatory position with the WBC, and also going to Belfast, going into the Lions Den, that'd be a very, very commendable thing from O'Shaquie Foster if he was to do that. But yeah, I think the most favourable fight, as much as talented as O'Shaquie Foster is. I know we'll come on to other names, but I think Anthony Cacace would, that'd be the most favourable fight for him next if it was to be a world title. And, he makes no secret. He wants the big money fights. That's he's won his world titles, but I just can't see any more real major big money fights that aren't for a world title. So yeah, I would like to see that next, definitely.
Yeah, and let's be ambitious. Like, why can't that fight happen next? O'Shaquie Foster, he's not fought for a while. I do question myself if Foster is going to fight at super featherweight again. I think he's had been that weight for a long time, as has Cacace. But Foster, he's fought. If you look at his Mexico, if you look at his resume, sorry, he's not been afraid to travel. He's been to Mexico, been to Dubai in recent years. So why can't it happen? I really hope I'm kind of right in saying that this why can't this fight happen in kind of September, October time? But we'll see. Um, we were originally going to make this video last night now, but you were clever enough to say let's hold off to see what happens in the Emmanuel Navarrete Charlie Suarez fight. Navarrete holding on to his world title. Controversial circumstances, but that's for another video. Navarrete, arguably the biggest name in the division. Um, I'll again, I want us to be ambitious here. Um, can you see that fight happening here? Navarrete's kind of moved up and down in weight divisions throughout his career. I think he's an unpredictable fighter with what he's going to do next. But is that one that you can see happening at all, or not so much?
As you say, let's be ambitious and say why can't that happen? To be honest with you, I definitely could see it happening. Another big payday for Cacace, and there's a possibility if it's not in Belfast that would be in the States, so it'd be a stateside debut for Cacace. Big money there. Navarrete, as we say, got quite fortunate last night. And it's another fighter with limitations. Like O'Shaquie Foster, he's not the quickest feet or the quickest hands, but it's his brutish bullish strength that's his biggest attribute. He's just such a big bruising super featherweight. That's why I'd worry for Anthony Cacace stylistically in that one. I just think Navarrete probably would overpower him, in my opinion. I do think he's he is such a dominant champion, in terms of his strength and his physicality. So, if I, again, being biased, if I had to choose, I wouldn't favor Kakachi there in that one at all. But yeah, I really would like to see. I'd have no qualms about seeing that fight next as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's we'll see. Navarrete as well. Like, I think I hate to say this, but like same with Shaki Foster, you don't know if he's going to remain in the weight division. I don't know if you saw like he had, I think it was second or third attempt at making weight on Friday. So it looked like he kind of really struggled to really struggled to make weight for that fight. But yeah, whether he's going to make continue that weight, go back to the lightweight, we'll have to see, but I would love Kakachi to go to. I know they've talked about a Belfast homecoming, but I'd love for him to go to America and get that big fight at the age of 36. I think it's very much deserved. What's what are your thoughts on Kakachi's future at super featherweight now? He's not no longer world champion. He's no longer got that belt. He's been at the weight for a long time, as has Shaki Foster as well. Feels like this is a repeating topic in this video. We see fighters maybe staying in weight divisions longer than they should do. What do you see happening with Kakachi? Do you see him kind of staying at super featherweight for the next couple of fights? Could you see him moving up in his next fight? Where's your head at?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Like you look at him and say, how does he make? I know he does kind of boil himself down to super featherweight, and you can see that like he is so big, those broad shoulders, those long arms. But then again, you look at his performances, and you're saying he doesn't look to be kind of diminished. He's getting better as he's getting older. He's not getting kind of worse. So that is an interesting situation. Last night against Joe Cardina as well, he looked as good as he ever did. So I can see him staying there, especially that if it looks like it probably will be a world title fight next. If he was to move up, I know there is huge money fights in the lightweight division. There is superstars up there, but the way I look at it is, I don't know how kind of appealing of a name he is for one of those guys. If he moves straight up, you know, as opposed to if he won a world title next and then moved up, I could see him getting a big name. If that was to be his last fight, win a world title at super featherweight and then go into a world title fight at lightweight. So yeah, I can see him staying definitely for his next fight. I think he stays at 130, world title fight on the line, and then if he was to win that, he's there'd be kind of people queuing up to fight him. He'd be a much more notable name stepping up for a big money fight, yeah, at 135.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, it's interesting. Looking at him, I think chances are he will probably remain at super featherweight for his next fight. However, I think he could be a force at both weights. I really think he could. It's obviously hard for him to get down to super featherweight, but I think he can do it. A fight I would love to see would be if Cacace was to move up. And I think that's someone, there's a certain Welshman who would be waiting for him at lightweight, wanting revenge. Joe Cordina, anyone who doesn't know where I'm going with that. Joe Cordina, who I think has been a bit kind of frozen out in the cold for a while now. Doesn't have a isn't connected to one of the big promoters. Hasn't had a fight for since that Cacace fight, which was a year ago now. And Cacace, that's a fight where that could happen in Belfast. It's a big fight that Joe Cordina I think would be the B side for. So that's a fight that appeals to me now. Does that appeal to you if Cacace was to kind of to leave the 130-pound division behind him and move up to lightweight?
Yeah, it is a big fight. I spoke earlier about there not being many big money fights outside a world title, but that is a big fight. It's so strange how Joe Cardina's kind of career has went. He's just kind of fizzled away. All the talent in the world, we thought he was going to the top. Of course, he did win world titles, but you know. as an underdog against Cacace, and Cacace dominated him. He kind of brutalized him towards the end of that fight, and he really did. So it's it'll be a must-win fight for Joe Cordina. Coming back at 135. I know he's due to fight Shakur Stevenson, obviously for the world title there. So he would be fresher. I would expect a better version of Joe Cordina. But then again, if it's at 135, you're expecting a better version of Anthony Cacace as well. So it's a fascinating fight. Real like last fight, real winner stays on. It's a career ender for Joe Cordina, absolutely, if he lost that one. So yeah, I would like to see a fighter, as talented as Cardina not continue to waste away. I think he needs to get back. He needs to get back soon, and he will be looking for revenge. So I'd have no problem with seeing that fight at 135 if it was a debut there for both men.
Fantastic. All right, now. I've got one question for you left. I feel like I've been terrorizing you the last 24 hours with questions about Anto Cacace as well as some of the undercard fighters. What would you want to see the most here? There's a big fight against Oshaki Foster, possibly in Belfast, a big fight against Navarrete in America, a big fight against Joe Cordina in Belfast. Something else, something else maybe. There's the win of the Rikishi and Nunes fights. I'm not sure I see that happening just because I'm not sure the money's there. There's possibly other tough super featherweights as well. What would really do it for you in Cacacio, that not necessarily his next fight, but the next few months?
Yeah, I'll just say the Rikishi Sugar Nunes fight. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Anthony Cacace would still be a world champion if it wasn't for the presence of Sugar Nunes lurking. But again, I'm gonna be very biased and say I'd love it to be a world title shot. I really would. And I'd love to be against Oshaki Foster in Belfast, the SSE Arena, rocking the
Yeah,
famous green and gold belt on the line. And as I touched on earlier, the most favourable option for Kakachi to face, in my opinion. Now, that being said, I'm going to kind of maybe contradict myself a bit and say I would favour Oshaki Foster in a close fight just because of how quick and how sharp he is and how what a clever boxer he is. But Kakachi is definitely has a chance as opposed to if he went to America and fought Emmanuel Navarrete. I think Navarrete could walk him down and brutalise him a bit and stop him. So I'd love it to be a big homecoming against Oshaki Foster for the WBC title, definitely. But if I had to put money on it, Foster wins that for me. But you never know in Belfast.
yeah. But you heard it here first. Look, I'm with you. I'd be tempted to do a trip to Belfast myself. Such a fantastic fighting city, and you want to see fighters fight where they're from, and that's what Kakachi's not done too much of in his career. So fingers crossed he gets that big fight in Belfast next. Now, good to be joined by you as always. I will speak to you again very, very soon.
Cheers, take care.